Good afternoon from here, from the Immunospace team. And my name is Sarah. And we'd like to welcome all of you to this online talk and discussion on an important subject that I'm sure we all feel is relevant any season, from flat to fired up, reawakening enthusiasm. And I like this quote by Martha Graham, who's a dance pioneer. She said, "There is a vitality and a life force, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium." So there's something that fires each one of us, and whether it's physical or is expressed in a more subtle way, it is the spark, the light in the eyes, as if, and it's definitely something that we enjoy when we're in that space of enthusiasm. So I'm going to first invite, we'll have two speakers today. We'll be hearing first from Namrata. Hopefully she'll be coming into light soon. And we have Dr. Prashant. So Namrata, her background, she's GP working in Cambridgeshire, also interested in natural practices through food and understanding through a holistic approach. Very similar to Dr. Prashant, who's working integral health and background is in surgery. So both very dedicated to spirituality, but having this background of understanding the physical side. And I will now be inviting Dr. Namrata to give her overview on this. After that, we'll be inviting Dr. Prashant, and then there'll be chance for Q&A. And all along, you feel free to share in the chat your thoughts, your questions. So warm welcome once again, and hi to Namrata, and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you for having me. Yes, it's a wonderful topic, and it would be really nice if you could be, we could be 100% enthusiastic and driven all the time. And it's okay to feel flat every now and again, but when it becomes relentlessly down, which is the reason, the state of mind for a lot of people, then we start to wonder, what is what is the problem, or is there a problem? So we will explore that a bit more in details today. I'll share my screen. Easier to explain. Yeah, so you can see that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Right. Oops, I think that's the one there. So yes, tired all the time. It's one of the most common presenting complaint to the doctors. And we're not talking about this sort of, tiredness or feeling flat, one off, you go to sleep and then you wake up and you're back up again. We're talking about this repeated, persistent patterns, or even the persistent feeling of this, all the time. And I promise you, it's not going to be mental health and stress. It's going to be more than that. But let's see what's the interesting facts behind it. Now, guess what? With a lot of people who feel this way, a lot of times we don't have any reasons, and most of them, they feel very despondent. Why is this happening? And they have to keep carrying on with life like this. Now, to start with, when we think, how does somebody who feels flat or tired looks like? And most of the time they look like this. Not exactly like this, but what I mean is they look normal. Nothing to be seen externally, but they are very normal. They could be working professionals, and yet they feel really down. So I'll give you some examples, some words that actually patients normally say how they feel. And the common ones, fatigue, depleted, exhausted, some of them no drive to get up in the morning, there's no this oomph, to keep going. You do your things, but it's a bit like, what's the point? I have to do it. Some of them says, this heavy feeling, like a sack of potato, just it's a feeling, not necessarily what they're doing from outside. There is the foggy mind and this zombie. Again, recently somebody said that externally they're doing everything that they need to do, but internally this is how they feel. Now, some people actually, the worst kind of cases I've seen, they actually say, I feel possessed. I'm not myself. I feel I'm being controlled by somebody else. And it's not me. When I'm driven and I'm fine, I'm okay. But at the time, I don't even recognize the person who I am. And of course, we don't want to be feeling like this. And how do they want to feel? Internally, this is how we all want to feel. Not necessarily that, we're dancing all the time, but we want to feel fresh. We want full clarity, clear mind, full of life, this inner joy, the enthusiasm. We want to feel motivated, driven, inspired, creative. And yeah, free, light, it's kind of, it feels like this is the natural state of how we should be feeling. And yet, like we said, it's nothing wrong with feeling flat or tired now and again. But when it's consistently or persistently we're feeling that way, it's very depleting and you feel, you're running on empty a lot of the time. So what do? Of course, you're going to make an appointment and see your GP. And what will the GP do? Let's look at some of the scenarios. So you go to the GP, to your doctors, and I'm sure many will resonate with this pattern. So you say, I'm feeling tired, and doctor will run some of the basic blood tests looking for vitamins, minerals, thyroid, kidney, liver, like general blood tests. We have a panel called Tired All the Time blood panel. If needed, we may do some scans as well, depending on other symptoms. Sometimes we find some illnesses, whether it's heart or lungs or anything. It could be autoimmune condition. Most of the time, we don't find anything. And so you're told, all your blood tests are normal, everything's fine. Maybe you should exercise a bit more. Maybe you should sleep better. Maybe, you need to eat healthier. And sometimes it, maybe just chill, just be happy. And internally you think, I'm doing everything. I exercise, I eat healthy, and I am okay. And you can't get an answer. What is the problem? And sometimes if you're having some aches and pains, a bit of different examination, then the question is it fibromyalgia, which is a constellation of symptoms with muscle pains and, all examination normal. And you're like, okay, maybe fibromyalgia. And then a few months down the line, what you say is, well, how I feel, it's not that. There's so many patients who say, I know my fibromyalgia, it's really different to how I'm feeling. This tiredness, this flat, it's not that. And then we think, so what else is going on? Some people have this chronic fatigue syndrome, where you're feeling fatigued as if you're depleted all the time, regardless of the amount of sleep, regardless of your healthy diet, all the time. And yet, people who have this flat mood or lack of drive, enjoyment for life, will still question, this is not my chronic fatigue syndrome, something else. Some people who have hormone problems, premenstrual syndrome, they might see a pattern. If it's more severe, some people would have 2 weeks of the month, it will be really bad. And then 2 weeks, it would be, these are the people who often say, I feel controlled and I feel possessed, because 2 weeks are so enthusiastic, so full of life. And the other 2 weeks, absolutely a different person. And then menopause, perimenopause, something going on in the air at the moment. So some people are thinking, is this my menopause? And I'm even having young people, like in their 30s, because of all this constellation of symptoms, foggy mind and all of that. And you do their blood tests and all, and it's not that. And you question what's happening. Is it diet? Is it lifestyle? Hormonal disturbance? What's happening? And finally, it always comes to that, maybe mental health, maybe you're depressed, maybe you're overthinking. But so many people will say, I have everything. I have a happy family. I have externally, I have a great job. I go to the gym every day. There's nothing to be unhappy about. I have everything. And I've heard doctors saying to patients, maybe you just need to be grateful. Maybe you're not grateful enough. And I mean, it's a good way, but these patients are so hopeless, not knowing what's happening. And the question is, what is this feeling and why? Because whatever they're feeling, it's an energy. It's that experience, and the proof is in the experience. It's not in the blood test, it's not in the examination, it's not in the scans. And yet, medical science will look for that, because what medical science and what we as human beings do, we go for what's visible, what's tangible, and what we can explain. So we keep looking for answers. And like we say, that energy is so invisible. Maybe the answer is not where you can see or when you can hear. And very simply, again, medical science, we look at the body and we say, where is the cause? We examined, and this body includes the mind as well, because we have a lot of mental health conditions where we do have some diagnostic criteria. So that's the human aspect. And then, of course, there's the being aspect. And it's a very simple equation, which probably you've guessed. And I'm not teaching you what a human being is, but it's more, where are we looking? Because the human being is your body, your mind, but there's you, that invisible being who is experiencing all these constellation of unexplained symptoms, and you kept being told everything is normal, and it's not normal. And what is that energy, that flat feeling to do with, with what you're feeling? We say it's when the demand exceed the supply. So there is so much demand for your energy to be high, for you to be driven and motivated. But for some reason, you're not generating enough energy to feel that, and you're running on empty. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the human, the body reasons for where energy come from, just to look at both sides, because of course it's the body, it's the invisible aspect, both together, is where the answer would be. And people may have heard of it. So the body, where does energy come from the body? And we think, yep, we eat food and we produce energy. But knowing the science behind it can be quite helpful, because when you know the why, the mechanism of what's happening, you will be more motivated to do the changes. So mitochondria is the energy factory. So it's one of the organelles, one of the what's in every cell of the human body. We have hundreds, trillions of cells, human cells. Each cell will have about 1,000, 2,000 mitochondria. So say if you think of the liver cell, there could be a million of these energy factory, but a muscle, your muscle will have maybe triple, quadruple of these mitochondria, because the muscle is always contracting, producing energy. And your heart will have 10 times more, because your heart is always beating, it doesn't stop. And we know that even if we do nothing, our body needs to produce energy to be able to breathe, for our organs to function, just for the baseline, we need energy. Now, what happens in the mitochondria? So yes, you eat food. That food, the carbohydrates, the protein, your fats, it gets absorbed. So we need to make sure the food is getting absorbed and there's proper blood flow for it to reach those cells. And then it's very important to know, to make that energy. In science, energy is ATP. It's like your currency, how much energy currency have you got and how much ATP can you make. So to make that, we need many things, but especially iron, magnesium, your B vitamins, and some of the antioxidants. So that explains why people, when you're low in iron, you feel tired. It explains why people are so much after, or should I take a magnesium supplement, or B vitamins? It's because at its core, it's really needed. And very interesting as well, or very important, is oxygen. And I'll come back to that to explain how breathing properly, having adequate posture is very important, for that oxygen to get through. Now, yes, we have short bursts of exercise where we don't need oxygen. Just people who are scientific might know that, but that's not the norm. The norm is you need oxygen. And then the question is, where is, when there's increased demand, and how would the mitochondria function? So what are the increased demands? The common things are, when we're maybe exercising, we are having to do much more. But when we're unwell, we have cold, coughs, flu, or any illnesses, we need more energy to recover. It's important to know when we're stressed. So if our mind is constantly overthinking and we're stressed, what happens? We use up our store of iron, we use up our store of magnesium. So sometimes what we're eating, we might be eating the best diet, but it may not be enough to kind of supply for our demand. And it's important to know sometimes if we're overeating, because when we eat, we get energy, but when we're overeating, or if we're eating the wrong type of food, or like heavy food, if we're constantly snacking, instead of getting energy, we are giving energy for, to digest these foods. So do you see? So we're basically stealing our energy to be able to digest those heavy food. So it's important to know. And lack of sleep, because in your sleep, reparation, healing happens in the sleep to kind of get your energy up. So if there is poor quality sleep, you don't perform optimally, your mitochondria. If we are doing too much, so there's this concept, people, they burn the candle at both ends. So at one end, they're working really, really hard, thinking really hard. Then because they think they have to look after themselves, so they're going to the gym, exercising, and like over socializing, because they think that's what human beings should be doing. So doing too much, and we don't realize because we're comparing with others. So it's kind of, there's not enough energy to get you to do all of that. And the mitochondria, it needs to be at its optimal, at its best, to be able to function. Then we think, what are the reasons why it may not function optimally? Now, when we think of a factory, any factory that produces anything, there will be some toxins that it will generate anyway. That's like the normal thing that it will generate. But sometimes there are external toxins. So for example, one is as we get older, our cells, our organs get older, it ages, which means it won't function 100%, but it can still be optimal, so that's acceptable. But as it's producing these energy, the normal toxins gets produced. But then the external ones, I've termed it in general as inflammatory food. So what is inflammatory food? So anything that causes inflammation, harm, that would include your junk food, your heavy food, your excess sugar, excess salt, repeated frying. It could be your preservatives, microbial food, any junk food, sometimes too much caffeine. I've put refined sugar and poor blood sugar balance, and I'll come to that in detail because it's important. But even smoking, alcohol, these are the common ones. It's worth thinking for somebody who doesn't smoke, who doesn't drink, and thinks they're having a healthy lifestyle, what is it in the diet that could be causing inflammation? So it's worth looking at this, what we call anti-inflammatory food. So there's this concept of eat a rainbow. Most people are acquainted with 5 a day, and 5 a day is not enough. 5 a day is for people who not even have 1 or 2 a day. They live on beige food or just potatoes. So this is more, having a variety, having colorful vegetables and fruits. And we aim for about 25 to 30 varieties a week. It might seem a lot, but when you count your legumes, your beans, your pulses, your nuts and seeds, when you make a list, you realize actually it's not that much. And why did I put these vitamin A, C, E? So when there is inflammation, so say even if there is no inflammation, the mitochondria is just aging and it's just producing normal toxins, you need antioxidant to recycle those. So to be able to recycle them, you need especially vitamin A, C, E. So vitamin C is what we call the master antioxidant. Hence the reason when you have a cold, we say have a lot of vitamin C. And human beings, we don't really produce natural vitamin C anyway. So, your oranges, clementine, lemon, all of that. So it's important to know, am I having enough of these vitamins in my body? Yes, and that's the great thing. Can I increase the number of mitochondria? Because these are energy factory. If I can increase the number of factories in my body, that means more energy. How do I do that? And that's to do with muscle. The more muscle bulk I have, because when the muscle expands, means you're having more cells in your body. And yes, we're talking about exercise. People who are fatigued and tired, they're like, what are you telling me? I can't even move. I can't exercise. So we talk about, simple things of moving your body, but against resistance. So even simple arm exercises. So you might be sat, but you could be lifting something, like a can of beans, starting slow. You could be sitting, but doing a bit of cycling movement against gravity. Exercise also includes your deep breathing, your lung exercises, your laughing, we'll come to that. But how about the lack of movement, versus the too much doing? So people who say chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia, very often, I can't move, I can't exercise. But what happens with the lack of movement, when you're idle too much? So one is, yes, you're not generating enough muscle and mitochondria. It's more, if I don't use it, I lose it. So it's a vicious cycle. You feel more tired. But when you're using your muscle, when we do exercise, we produce these mood enhancers. So, the serotonin, your dopamine, your endorphins. So you start by doing something and you start feeling the drive. So it's always good to start somewhere. And what is doing too much? I have put adrenal fatigue because people have asked me that. And it's not a medical term, so it's not recognized in Western medicine, but more in natural medicine. What it means is to do with chronic fatigue, or chronic stress. So when we're stressed temporarily, there's a pool of cortisol, to kind of boost you to say, okay, you're stressed. So let me pump up a bit to make you feel a bit kind of fired up. But if you're constantly in a survival mode, constant survival mode could be normal. You just wake up, you're very much in a rush to prepare the breakfast, you look after your kids, you have to rush to go to work, then you rush at work, then you rush to go to the gym. So you use up that pool of hormones and you're depleted. So that's fatigue. Your body cannot cope anymore. You're burning the candle at both ends. So that's one of the reasons. And then, yes, in terms of oxygen and exercise, I've put the deep breathing, posture, walking outside, and belly laugh. no matter how tired someone is, and no matter how depleted and flat they feel, we have like laughing yoga. It's worth just laughing for no reason and see how you feel. And one was thinking of this example of, say, my own job. When one is working in an A&E, for example, accident emergency, always on the go, 10 hours, 12 hours, walking, talking, moving. And all of that is, you're kind of using your muscle. Your posture is good, you're breathing properly, your muscle is using this sugar. And by the end of 10 hours, it's like, yeah, I'm finished work, let's go to the gym or let's do something else. But when I'm doing 4 hours of GP, I'm sat in the office, just 4 hours. By the end of it, like I still have 4 hours when I'm at home now. I have the rest of my 4 hours, but so flat. And I used to think, why? And it's that combination of being stuck in an office, maybe poor air circulation, posture is not very good, you're not using your muscle. The reason I'm saying that is because many people are working from home and even office work. You can think what's happening when you're in the office. So think about, can I do standing working? Can I move my body when I'm working? Can I laugh a bit? Posture, deep breathing. There's these vagus nerve exercises. So much to think about. For the feeling of lack of enthusiasm. It's not always mental health and depression. And then balancing blood sugar, very important. This roller coaster. And why is it important? Because our hormones are very similar. Sometimes people, this roller coaster of emotion, flat, enthusiastic, down, low, your cortisol, stress hormone, very similar pattern. Your circadian rhythm, which is your sleep pattern, very similar. So we need to understand that when we have food, ideally we want it like that, like very slight. So it's balance. It's to do with balance, if you can see that. If we have a very high refined carbs food, your typical cereal in the morning, which for some reason people think it's healthy, but it's not. What happens is the higher you're going to spike, you're going to feel like, wow, I feel great, because sugar makes you feel great. The higher the spike, the lower you'll dip. Hence why this post-lunch dip that people have. So then you're going yo-yo up and down. Whereas if you're to balance your sugar, so how do we do it? Is by feeling fuller, by eating food that will make you feel fuller for longer. And simple, make sure there's enough fiber in your diet. In Western countries, we don't have enough fiber. We need about 30 grams per 30 grams per day. I'll come to that. Plant proteins, healthy fats. What do? They actually bind any excess sugar and they will flatten the curve, right? Look at the portion sizes. You might be eating healthy, but it might be too much. Snacking, when you don't feel full and you're having this crash, you're more likely to snack. So it's not always willpower that you have to have, or I have to have willpower not to snack. You just have to feel full, like, eat enough that you're balancing your sugar. And feeling full has two connotations. One is diet, but also is the feeling full of yourself, your spirit. Moving the body. When you move, when your muscles are moving, you're absorbing and storing excess sugar in your muscle. So you're not spiking high and low because the sugar is going straight in your muscle or your liver to be stored. And then sleep well, good quality. When we don't sleep well, you know that next day you're craving, you want to reach out for those unhealthy things. And that's to do with the circadian rhythm. And stress, which is the stress hormone is the cortisol. I've put caffeine because it has the same thing what cortisol does. When we're stressed, we produce this cortisol hormone, which is our natural steroid. So the more steroid, the more sugar we produce, even the natural sugar. And it's going to be the same thing. You may be eating zero sugar, but if you're stressed all the time, then you're just producing natural sugars that just does the same yo-yo thing. Right, so just in summary, optimal health. We need all of these. And I've put it because I know we don't have a lot of time. It's just to get like an idea of what is it that I need to eat. We've talked about moving the body, quality sleep, the mind. and many different examples. However, so many people tell me I eat healthy, I sleep really well, I exercise, I go to the gym, and I've been through CBT and all this therapy, and I feel I am okay, I'm not depressed. But I still don't have this joy of living. Something is lacking. And going back to, what is lacking, there's that human bit, but there's that invisible being, who you are, and what we call the one who is experiencing, the experiencer, who is truly experiencing the lack of enthusiasm. And what we talked earlier, what is the experiencer experiencing? And if we know, he's doing everything, he or she's doing everything, and yet not feeling what they really want to feel, the left-hand side, the right-hand side here. So hopefully, a very quick talk through a lot of aspects. So hopefully that has helped understand some of the core things. Well, thank you.
Yeah, beautifully summarized. And we'll be making this recording available on our YouTube channel because there might be some aspects that you need to revisit. And as you say, when we know a bit more why, there's motivation. So just these insights will be very, very helpful. Much appreciated. And so we're going to be having opportunity to ask some questions, but first we'll be hearing from Dr. Prashant. So welcome.
And hello, and thank you. And thank you to Namrata, and it's such a detailed, very clear insights into dealing with our practical life. And very true. We first need to rule out anything at a gross level, and if that is addressed, then many things are already, you are in the flying stage naturally. Bit like if there is some physical injury, then its answer is not mental, health, addressing that if there is a fracture that has to be addressed. In the same way, many of these areas need to be addressed. But one thing I might like to add, which I myself was surprised with the results, and that is fasting. This some of the things Namrata mentioned, foggy mind and person feeling is like a bag of potatoes or just a laziness, tiredness. Just a fasting for a period of time, not long fasting, maybe even a couple of days fasting. And theory behind this is most of us in this present society, we overeat. And when body is getting more than what it can manage, lots of these byproducts are floating in the body and they are stored in various parts within our body. Just like in your house, more food is coming every day and there's not enough to eat. Then what happens? That the food is not just in the fridge and the storeroom, it is going on the dining table and corridors, and yogurt is in your wardrobe, you know, and potatoes bags are in the corridor. This is exactly what happens with our body. These floating peptides, they are stored all over the body. They block some receptors in the synapses, and they are stored within the arteries, and that's why there's various other problems, circulatory problems. And so ideal is to give to the body what body needs. That is very sensible. But given that we might, likely to, eat more than what is likely, what the body needs, introducing this some fasting, it takes out these protein peptides. They are taken out from these synapses, from the receptors. And once the blocks are removed, then your brain is functioning normally. The nervous system is functioning normally. For that matter, various body systems. Something to experiment with. And Namrata also mentioned some people feel they feel as if they are possessed. So if you are fasting, the person is less likely to be possessed. So they choose one who is indulgent. They won't be looking for one who is fasting. That also brings us to this subject of today, and the subject is enthusiasm. I want to touch that area. And the etymology of enthusiasm is being possessed by God. Theo. So God enters. The etymology, and that is the way it was understood in the beginning, Greek origin of the word. And it really happened. It is not God coming in, but we use the language new soul coming in, new energy coming in. This is obviously what happened at that time, and that's what they saw. And there was a different energy there. They are sort of full of what may be what we might say normal. And as time progressed, they found that there are certain ways they can invoke this new incarnation in themselves. And they called it enthusiasm. And in time, this same word was used in very different ways. At one time, people would be doing some intense prayer to get this enthusiasm, this new energy coming in, and they called it God coming in. God doesn't come like this, but there is understanding of the new souls, something, in the language, and that is a different energy. And in time, in the recent history, which means 200 years ago, the same word was used for fanaticism. So someone is fanatic about some political ideas, religious ideas, that was called enthusiasm. But today, the word is positively understood and used. It is like the great interest and joy. You are doing things with this energy. All that, what it is telling us is that within us, this is the spiritual mode. Within us, there is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In some, this Dr. Jekyll is more dominant. And as time progresses, Mr. Hyde becomes dominant. Those who don't know the story of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll is a noble person and has a great virtues and enthusiastic. And Mr. Hyde is a bad person. So that is, and this Dr. Jekyll, he invents a solution, and when he drinks that solution, he becomes Mr. Hyde. So the same person becomes bad, and the same person becomes good. So what this knowledge is telling us, the spiritual model, we all start good. Within us, there is this not just slightly good, but extraordinarily good. And let me use the whiteboard and just try and draw some sketches. the big thing that happens within us is that there comes a time when we are first coming into this world. Obviously we are talking about the spiritual model, and we as spiritual beings, we are first coming into the physical world. We are more like Dr. Jekyll. That's why we use the term new souls, new energy. And when we are first here, there are no complications. That our natural state is immensely positive. We can literally call this this applies to all 100% of us. We start with natural positivity, and so their state is of natural joy and contentment and peace and love and what you would love in everyone. If anyone has that quality, you love those people, and you would love to have this yourselves. This is what we all want to become. There is no reason in them to be angry or sad, or they can deal with life very, very differently, and naturally angelic, naturally divine. That is the starting position of everyone. And anything to be done, they are happy to do this. So you wash the pots for next 2 hours, they will do it with happiness and with enthusiasm. That is natural state. Now, what happens in our journey through this physical world? We create bondages. That is the one weakness of all these Mr. Positives. But the only weakness is they create attachments, they create dependencies unnecessarily, and they get impressed. And once they are creating these attachments here, this is as if a layer created on top of this divine, their personality, another layer on top. And this layer is blocking this divine. It is almost like a rust on top. And this outer layer that is created, as time progresses, it can only get worse. That is like, for example, I come to one place here, and for some reason I start to think this is my chair. And the moment I put this label "my" to that chair, I already start feeling worry about losing this, my amazing chair. I am worrying. And what do I do? And my answer to this my crisis is to have one more chair so that there is a backup. So I create another attachment, and now I can lose two. So that I have to create more. That's the principle behind this downward spiral. We are busy. This is the pattern. If you see, 100 friends, you try and meet them, or 100 people in the city, what are they doing? They all want to create more attachments to address what they think is something missing in their lives. That Mr. Hyde, his life, his principle inside is something vital missing in my life. That is what he feels. That secondary personality that we create in us, and that is his his motto and his chant is something vital missing in my life. And he has to address this. And to address this, he constantly creates more attachments and more attachment. He never gets it. He just complicates his problem. And now this is a different personality. That this personality of Mr. Hyde is just the opposite. If you see the whole range of complications we see in the society, they can largely be grouped within these three words: sad, bad, and mad. Different kinds that we do not like in ourselves, we do not like in others. Its source is this Mr. Hyde. And Mr. Hyde starts, it is not our original, it is not innate, it is secondary, it is artificial. That's why the spiritual model deeply understands that everyone is good, exceptionally good. They are divine beings. This, what we see, is outer rust on top. And that is all that has to be removed. Now, how can we do this in ourselves? This is our story also. We all are with this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and we want to come out of this Mr. Hyde. A simple program is we can come back to this highest and the best very, very quickly. To remove the entire rust is one thing, but we can come into the experience of Dr. Jekyll very, very quickly. We just need to know how to bypass this Mr. Hyde. And for this one simple program, there is a time for analysis. Right now we are having this discussion and we are reflecting on this. We are sort of saying, what is this Mr. Hyde and why these attachments and what's wrong with attachments? We might go through this. But then there is a time to experience. And when it is time to experience, we have to stop this department of analysis. Go, take a jump. That is necessary in this game. One thing about Mr. Hyde, he is stubborn. So he doesn't let you come out of this. He will go into analysis. Is a nice excuse for Mr. Hyde to stay there. The very fact that he's insecure, and he is very, he doesn't want to let go. He thinks he will die if you, and you do want to remove him also. So there is a good reason Mr. Hyde remains stubbornly there, blocks you from any attempt to change. That's why you have to take a jump. In a second, see from a different perspective. That's why it is a game of 1 second. You are not analyzing, just going into the experience. And what are you doing during this time? This experiment. See the perspective of your original. See the original perspective. You came here without anything. Even the body, is you are using it in time. It is not yours. So you are coming back to square one. Start seeing what the starting position was. And starting position, you were a guest. You were an incarnate. That enthusiasm, you are bringing in God's starting position is your divine being. You own nothing from here, so you got nothing to lose. Deep inside, you are getting this feeling. You don't even own one atom here. we said for this, nice to remember some of these words. Guest is a nice word. Trustee is a nice word. Observer is a nice word. Traveler is a nice word. In all these cases, they are here, but they are not trapped. We want to come in that space of detached involvement for 1 minute. Aim for just 1 minute. For 1 minute, you are seeing the perspective of that invisible traveler who doesn't own a single atom in this world. Even as we are talking, try and experiment with this. That, coming to the first state of the way we came here. He doesn't own anyone, he doesn't own anything. He has come as an observer, he has come as a traveler, he has come as a guest, he has come as a trustee. He's associated with all these things and he's going to go back. He has his world beyond. This is a model, and nothing stops us from experiencing this other than our own analysis. Analysis is great, but what will happen if you experiment with this for 1 minute properly? Go into it. That experience that you get, that will help you in analysis. What Mr. Hyde does blocks even that experience for you. So it appears as if that Hyde personality is your only option. Here you are learning to bypass Mr. Hyde and come in the experience of your original state. And what you will discover is that what we spoke, it is not just a nice theory. You will discover this within yourselves. You will see that within you there is a happiness for nothing, and that you will discover that silent joy. You will discover silent contentment. You need nothing for existence. That starting position, you want nothing, no complications. You don't need any. Body needs oxygen, body needs air. You feel you need nothing. So there is deep contentment, and you discover lightness, and you discover everyone is good, in a feeling of great appreciation of you. They all are like this. Their starting position, they all are without Mr. Hyde, and immensely lovely and loving. You will experience this. Even if you experience for 1 second, you become wiser. You understand a secret, how to get in touch with that side of you. You can come back anytime when you choose. And every time you play with it, it only gets deeper and it will only grow. In anything, if you play music or practice anything, sport, each time you play with it, you will get better. It's also here. You as if come to know the soul, your own soul, and you know the divine nature of it. This, as we are saying, joy and happiness and lightness and love, these are not because of cream cake or because you got some prize of some kind. It is unconditional upon anything. You are discovering these qualities within you. And now, this, when you are in this emotionally, very stable state, I'm talking here minutes, emotionally stable state, you discover there is greater clarity. You discover enthusiasm. You feel like doing things. You feel like, as was said, that personality, there is no laziness in it. There is no laziness from, but there may be even 1 minute earlier or one, but once this comes in, you discover different you. That is why they use the word God coming in. It is like suddenly you find this new energy coming in, and then you find this is within you. And now you find once you are in this positive space, everything looks positive. It doesn't look neutral. Like when you look at the stone, it appears like a cheerful thing to see. Some sound that appears, the sound of the lorry is the sound of some noise. It all appears cheerful. Everything appears like a gift. Just like a guest appreciates things more than the local people. They don't mind things. Tourists, they enjoy more than the local people. Something similar happens here. You discover, you appreciate, greatly appreciate. You find everything is like a miracle. This body is like a miracle, and especially the wind coming. It's like a big miracle, wind. Normally we just don't think of it even. And wind moving the leaves and creating a ripple in water, everything appears cheerful, like something that you feel, you are amused by this, you are cheered by this. It becomes a continuous positive experience. And someone in this space, I tend to feel, someone experiments with this for 1 minute. If he is to check his chemistry will be very, very different. It will cure lots of his problems at many levels, I feel, not just at the mental health. It is very unlikely he will have mental health problems. That sad, bad, mad is the cause of all different combination within it. It is leading to mental health issues and also physical issues. You create this 1 minute, now and then, these experiences, that itself will be like a cure. Maybe in more doctors need to prescribe this 3 times a day after meals, and there will be less expense for the national health. Maybe I think I have covered my time, but it will be nice to hear from you also.
Thank you. Yes, Namrata touched on this. So sometimes it's mentioned maybe there needs to be some gratitude, but here it's based upon a higher perspective of guest, and then as if within that the gratitude comes, rather than trying to have a gratitude diary, which is also great, but the context may be having more power. And especially when you're describing not owning anything and you can't lose anything, always gives a feeling of some relief, of letting go of that, as if you can hold it. And I think that brings a lot of vitality. So we have time now, just under half an hour. We'll be finishing with some meditation. Some time for your comments and questions. We already have some here. And maybe like to ask Namrata about coffee. So is it okay to stop sharing the screen, Prashant? Or
Yeah, sure.
yeah. So yeah, you mentioned a lot of things that were very, very helpful. When we do feel we need something external, she's drinking a lot of coffee, 4 or 5 cups a day, and a bit worried about the effects. Does it hamper the immune system? Any comments on this?
Yeah. the question is, why do we need coffee? We have to ask ourselves, are we using it to wake up? Or is it, like the lady said, or the person, is it addiction? And we need to understand what coffee does to the body. So if you're drinking quite a lot, it can stay for up to 12 hours, and people get caught in this vicious cycle of poor quality sleep, waking up not refreshed, and then you need more coffee. It's kind of, you get addicted. Where do you start? Coffee, can increase your anxiety, palpitation. It's like the stress hormone. It increases acid in your stomach. People can get migraines, you can get heart issues. So personally, there's nothing good about coffee other than taste. One off here and there is okay. Now, if somebody is addicted, what can they do? So it's about how we deal with addiction. You slowly come off, but you replace it. So you reduce your caffeine. From coffee, you go to tea. Tea also has caffeine, but less. You can move to green tea, which is also a little bit of caffeine, and then replace with herbal tea. There are some adaptogenic coffee, like mushroom coffee. You can research on that. They taste like coffee, but they don't have any caffeine. So that's a good start. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And you also mentioned the vitamin C, the boosters. When you go into the capital, you get lots of adverts for all sorts of energy supplementary things. Would you recommend things like that, extra minerals, vitamins, taking something from outside?
Yeah, so the key is to understand again, and depending on what the person's symptoms are. So if somebody is super stressed and they're not eating healthy, like we said, with stress, you're using up all these, your magnesium, your iron and all. And if you feel fatigued, then yes, you can take them. We look at supplements, some of them just temporary, 2 to 3 months, because we have to, it's not putting a patch on the problem. Every time you put a patch, it will erupt with a vengeance. So the key is to find the root, deal with the root, take the supplements temporarily to give you a boost, but the aim is always come back. And type of supplements is important. Don't just buy willy-nilly, some like an iron tablet, for example. A quarter could be pure iron, 3/4 is chemical toxins. These are the poor quality NHS ones. So do your research. There are a lot of supplement companies that will give you free nutritionist advice. So you can look. So clean supplements if you're going through, and know the types of supplement. Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. And one more aspect that was brought in, they found that fasting is really great, but it can be difficult not to kind of yo-yo and then go into like binging. So any advice on that?
So everybody should do fasting, every single person. And we're talking about 12 hours fasting. That's overnight fast. This should be normal, right? So you don't eat all the time. So ideally, you have 3 meals a day, but overnight, say your last meal is at 7, morning 7. Because what happens, the body does housekeeping. You clear off everything. If you keep eating, like we said, instead of food giving you energy, you're using your vital energy to just digest unnecessarily. So 12 hours overnight fast is a normal thing, and then 4 to 6 hours in between meals. And if someone is eating like properly, you feel full, not full like here, but satisfied, then you won't feel the need to snack. You don't need willpower, you just need to eat better. Yeah. So balance your blood sugar.
Yeah, thank you very much. And hope that helps, and feel free to add in the chat. And there was a question here, perhaps Prashant would like to answer this one about bipolar, a diagnosis of bipolar, which might come with months of depression or low mood. Is it also one of the symptoms of deeper spiritual malaise? Would you say it's connected to that?
Not in an obvious way.
Mhm.
And of course, there are roots at a deep level to almost everything, but it is not in an ordinary way has a connection with spiritual issue. There is more, it is more like a condition we are born with. There are genetic factors also.
And would spirituality help? It might not be the cure, but it would be something to complement, perhaps addressing the more sort of physical, chemical side?
If something that we spoke about, if that is practiced with accuracy, it will have a beneficial effect for all conditions, even physical conditions, because it sort of helps us get back to that origin. It won't help on the first day, but it will continue to, some conditions may be benefited straight away. But if one is consistent to remove Mr. Hyde and get back to Dr. Jekyll, if that purification is aimed for, that has power to help all conditions of the body and the mind. In putting another way, there can only be benefit.
Yeah, thank you. So again, if there's any other comments on this thread, that would be happy to hear. I want to ask Namrata, because I know you've given us very thorough information about the physical, but you've also got a lot to share on the being part. And is there anything you want to share about what Prashant touched on, say this aspect of being a guest, and it kind of opens up perhaps a vitality? Is there anything that came to your mind that you'd like to share, either your experience or anything that you've shared with your connections or patients that might be relevant or useful for us?
Yeah, I mean, there are several things, and there's a lot of course, there is truth in that, because we did talk about the experiencer. Because what happens is, in search for a diagnosis of why am I feeling this way, it feels like having a diagnosis, whether it's fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and all of that. People kind of say, oh yeah, this is my diagnosis, that's why I'm like that. But very quickly they learn that having a diagnosis doesn't solve the problem, because sometimes the problem isn't to do with the diagnosis. And equally, no diagnosis, when people feel despondent, like what do I do, and they keep searching, then the feeling is, instead of searching and wasting this valuable short life that you have, do something about it, start doing. So what we've talked about. But yes, when you come with this perspective, so I often tell patients, who were you when you were born? Were you the same person? What happened? Go back to who you actually are. So very often we do use this traveler analogy. What if you are a tourist on the planet? In fact, we are a tourist because we literally came to go, we're not here forever. Or if, you're an actor, you're just playing your part. And, when we were talking about this laughing, humor, belly laughing, and this is something I tell to patients, having a diagnosis, feeling whatever you're feeling is no reason that you can't be happy. So when you're an actor, you can watch your character being or having that condition. But as the actor, you can choose, even starting with this belly laughing. Once you start laughing, you find it so weird how the body kind of plays as well with you. Yeah. So it's hopefully that's helped.
Yeah, and it's uplifting to think that we're meant to be full and free. And when Prashant drew that star, and there's this inherent happiness for no reason. We might not feel it, but I think that touchstone feels useful. I think what can be challenging if we feel stuck in a job or life situation that, as if we feel, prevents us, maybe it's not fulfilling a sense of meaning. And that, I think, perhaps it's an attitude. Is it something I can do to change that through this practice? Is that something that you want to comment on, Prashant? if someone is feeling that their life situation is blocking them from meaning and purpose. The question clear?
We work on all fronts. One is that we have to address the life situation. If it is easy to change, and nothing wrong with that. But at the moment, see it as a nice opportunity and to practice certain things, spiritual practices in that situation. You might never get this same situation again, ever in the life. So now that it is there, make the most of it and introduce this practice. And this is such a thing. It makes you independent of the world outside. Like a tourist who comes, he doesn't mind what whether people have painted their buildings green or blue. He might at most take photograph and go. He doesn't sit there complaining about it. It is like that. Once you are playing with that perspective of detached involvement in that space, things of this world don't worry you. Your whole positioning is independence. You learn how to be free from it. Dr. Jekyll, his strength is independence, freedom from this world. He is not taking support from anything of this world. He is not, creating ego based on things of this world. So this world cannot deprive him. This world cannot deny him of anything. That's why that inner happiness.
Yeah, and I understand by implication what you mean is it doesn't mean we have to move away from anything or anyone, but we apply the mindset that gives us a clarity that we didn't come with all these things and we won't leave with them. So we are independent. And if we just apply that, then we will bring back a vitality to life because no one is controlling the way I feel. It is, I bring myself to that thing or situation without sort of slave mind. You mentioned that Dr. Jekyll is the one who has enthusiasm, and it was probably based upon your earlier definition that it's a good thing. But can sometimes not Mr. Hyde be enthusiastic, and how to be wary of that? Do I have to check sometimes? Do I have to curb my enthusiasm sometimes? It's the
Yeah,
wrong thing.
good question. Yes, that's true. Mr. Hyde can also have love and joy and enthusiasm. Everything is possible in Mr. Hyde. Only thing is that he's in a reverse gear, and he's happy because he's getting more cakes, and he's enthusiastic because he's soon going to get more. This kind of a situation. And his enthusiasm, his happiness, his love takes him further down that spiral in opposite direction. In other words, it creates down the line, creates a bigger problem. Mr. Hyde gets bigger. We need to have that discrimination. First, get on the right side, and then we have the contrast within ourselves. Definitely, we need to have the discrimination. Just happiness is just a blanket happiness is not necessarily a great answer, but is it coming from the right place? That is something we need to know. Just like say someone who is a drug addict and he's taking drug and is excited, happy. Others are not going to say, wow, I'm so happy for you because you are happy right now. you feel mercy. You feel he should be out of this. Same. Mr. Hyde happiness is Mr. Hyde is an addict.
It reminds me a bit of Namrata's curve, in that some foods, sugars, refined sugars rather, they release that. Is there anything you want to add to this conversation on this aspect, Namrata?
I've lost track of what we're talking about.
What's Mr. Hyde's enthusiasm? So we want to be enthusiastic, but from the space which is of health and well-being, rather than enthusiasm, which actually takes us down, which is a bit like that peak and trough that you mentioned earlier.
Makes sense.
And how to discriminate. Prashant was saying we need discrimination, and if there's something you want to add.
The common things that we know, like the sugar, the coffee, anything that gives you a quick buzz, and you know that you feel down after, then you know where it's coming from. But some things are very invisible or incognito. So it's about observing oneself. You know how we talk about over socialization, for example, because there are people, they feel that they have to socialize because this is normal, and then they feel absolutely exhausted. So you listen to your body, do you have to socialize that much? Can you space it out a bit, and sometimes being extrovertedly enthusiastic, personal experience, is it's a bit like the hare, the hare and the tortoise. So the hare runs very, very fast. And then, yes, what happens is he would stop to chill, but there's nothing to say that he got tired now or he got bored. Whereas that steady, slow, keep going, like that blood sugar balance, there will be some yo-yo, but it's at a balance level, not too high, not too low.
I really like that invitation to learn to listen in, because in a way, sometimes we feel we need permission. And especially if we're in an environment of extroversion, it could be our workplace or family life or friendship group. But these things we do need to recharge if we're more of the introvert type. So you mentioned coffee, and there's another question on coffee. It's a comment question. So research also shows that coffee helps the slowing of dementia and Alzheimer's. Is this true?
Not something I've heard of. There's so many little research and papers that comes out. When we say when you understand the why, then you will know for yourself what to do. Otherwise, 100 people will tell you 100 different things, and then you'll be pulled left, right, and center. So use your common sense to read on the NHS guidelines and see what, when we talk about coffee in terms of all the other things, because scientifically, coffee increases your stress hormones, the cortisol, that's why you're buzzing. But I wouldn't think for that Alzheimer's and dementia it's true. There's so many other things. For example, sugar is a key thing. So before you start drinking coffee to cure your Alzheimer's, how much have you stopped all refined sugar? Refined. So you're okay to have vegetables and fruits with sugar. But one of the things they talk for dementia is in Eastern world, they call it type 3 diabetes. It's not recognized in Western medicine, but it tells you how much sugar is key to dementia. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's a new one. It's nice that you can bring in the two worlds, because, in the conversation previously, we realized that some things that are not intuitively known or understood or exposed to, and for whatever reason, that's a discussion in itself. I have maybe one more question for you, Namrata, and that is, I'm sure we've all observed that, you might be doing a task and you feel, I'm absolutely tired, I need to have a rest, and it could be task connected. And when you change the task or you're told something which motivates you, then all of a sudden it's as if a new person. So what's going on there? And is that something we can maybe use, or what's happening in that case?
Yeah, so one has to observe whether it's a repeated pattern. So if it's a repeated pattern at the same time, then you look, the discussion we've done in terms of the nutrition, the activity levels, the sleep quality, and it also, what time is that dip? if it's inconsistent, so for me, if at odd times I'm feeling sleepy, if I am to see a cockroach, I'll be awake, and I'm like, what's that? Was I sleepy? So sometimes it's the idleness. When you're idle, you're not moving your body enough. That can cause a problem. If you're going to be sat down for a long time, so I do that. I put an alarm at 15 minutes just to get up and shake a bit. Otherwise, I will, it could be a sign of boredom. Feeling sleepy, not for everybody, but that's what I've observed is feeling sleepy doesn't always mean you have to sleep. But if your quality of sleep is not good and, it's a repeated pattern, then you have to look deeper.
Thank you. That's so true. So Prashant, there's one more question that's come in, and after that, maybe we can create time for some meditation, if that's fine. It's a comment from someone that has begun to see things more clearly, has experimented with some of these ideas, and they feel they have a lot of energy, but it's a bit like when you open a Coke bottle and there's a lot of fizz. It's like a release because they feel perhaps many years they've been trying to hold back who they are, and now it's like a lot of changing feelings. And they used to feel more like a zombie state, and now this true self, this vitality is waking up, but they feel they're sort of holding back. It's sort of an energy coming that they feel relieved and released, but how to handle. Does it make sense, the question?
Yeah, sure. And it is it's a journey for us to gradually dissolve Mr. Hyde. That is the journey. Some fine tuning is required if we are accurately in the right space. As was said, Mr. Hyde is stubborn and he has many ways to pretend to be, spiritual also. But some fine tuning is required, some checkings, discussion with the right people. But if it is in the right direction, then things are good. Everything will be good. Consistency is required also to create that regular time for the right practice.
Yeah, thank you. Very reassuring. Actually, another quick question came in. Feeling sleepy doesn't necessarily mean going to sleep. And Namrata mentioned to move, physical movement. Any other quick tips from yourself about resisting sleep? Maybe it's something else, anything other than exercise.
Understanding about sleep is important, so it doesn't always mean you don't have to sleep. Prashant will have a different answer to that. There's a talk that Prashant did on sleep, so understanding that sleep cycle and getting to know your sleep cycle, because you might be having long hours, but is it good quality? Sometimes snoozing and oversleeping, so there's more to it. It's not like a simple thing, because Dr. Namrata said when you feel sleepy, don't sleep, then you get crazy. I'd recommend watch. It's on Inner Space on YouTube. That sleep talk. It's very useful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've found it helpful when you mindfully take rest and work with knowledge of naps and sleep cycles. And we just put that in the chat. It's a link to the YouTube channel where this talk will be posted, and also what talks, retreats, courses are coming up. We have in person and online. So let's maybe create some minutes now for some of these experiences Prashant mentioned. Even if it's a minute, maybe we'll have more than 1 minute, but something we can all take home as a practice. So just want to say thank you to both of you and to everyone on the call for your presence and interest. questions. So yeah, over to you, Prashant. Thank you.
So during this couple of minutes, the step 0 for us is to see that our posture is right and that we are not multitasking during this time. We have the option to use our best spiritual sight. Everyone has this spiritual sight. We have the option to use it. And as was said, this is now not the time for analysis. This is our opportunity to experience. So in 1 second, we see the perspective of that invisible observer, invisible witness. He sees in a radically different way. There is a new perspective. He sees himself as a guest in this world. During this minute, we see this physical world as if it is a story. And when we are dealing with a story, there is nothing to worry about, nothing to complain about, nothing to think about. Invisible observer is seeing this world right now. It's a story. And we already see it, the change in our attitude. The same world, but we are seeing it differently. Same characters, same situation. Maybe for just 1 minute, but we are seeing differently. We are amused and we are entertained. We are not having the attitude we want to blame something here. Invisible observer. Observer is aware of his entrance, aware of his exit. He experiences the security of this witness. He experiences the lightness. He experiences the feeling of being entertained. He knows the freedom. Invisible witness. He is aware of the larger world beyond the story. As we continue on our journey, we remind ourselves of our beautiful truth. Thank
You. Thanks once again. And on the channel, we've also got meditations that might be nice to revisit on this theme. So we'll be meeting again soon, and stay in touch. Let us know how it's going with your experiments, and enjoy with this life of vitality of the Dr. Jekyll kind. We'll see you next time. Thank you.